Okay, so hello, I'm Rose Miller, the chair of the California High School Democrats, and with me I have Rebecca Griffin, who is the Assistant Director of California Programs at NARAL Pro-Choice California. She spearheads the pro-choice legislation at NARAL California, as well as communications and cultural organizing. So thanks for being with us.
Thanks so much for inviting me.
So, starting off, what does NARAL do on a national level?
So our work is about mobilizing the pro-choice majority to protect and expand reproductive freedom at the local level, the state level, and the federal level. So nationally, a lot of it is doing things like the fight that we just had over the appointment of Neil Gorsuch to the Supreme Court. NARAL led a coalition that mobilized people in key states, that did a lot of media work and really calling out the importance of this and pressuring the Democrats to filibuster and be as aggressive as possible. So we fight on the national level and things like that, protecting the ACA and people's access to reproductive health care, but also looking at how we can build power in the state and local levels as well, all across the country. We have affiliates in a bunch of states that are doing this work on the local level too.
That's great. So more specifically, what does NARAL do on a state level and what does NARAL do in California?
Mm-hmm. So, each state is different and has their own plan based on the landscape there. But, especially right now, I think it's really important to be doing work at the local and state level because it's where a lot of the most effective resistance is happening. It's where we can still make progress despite what we're seeing in the federal level and really protect people from what's happening on the federal level. And in California, I think we have a particularly important role to play because we do have a pro-choice legislature, we have power here, and it's important for us to keep moving things in the right direction, to codify the protections that we do have here, and also to really be a beacon of light for the rest of the country and show what we can do when the pro-choice movement has political power, and we really use that political power to make people's lives better in our state.
Yeah, we're definitely.
Yeah.
So what specific projects is NARAL California working on right now?
So this year we have a big agenda. We are focusing on 2 statewide bills that we're working to pass this year, and so that's where a lot of our effort is going. The first one is something called the Reproductive Health Non-Discrimination Act. And what it would do is it protect workers from any kind of punishment, including being fired for their private reproductive health choices. So whether it's using birth control, using in vitro fertilization, having an abortion, their employer cannot punish them for that, which most people respond with, well, of course, that is how it should be, but there are actual cases in California and around the country. For instance, there was a woman named Terry James in San Diego who was a financial aid specialist at a Christian college there, and her employer found out she was pregnant and she wasn't married, and they fired her for that. In San Francisco, the Archdiocese tried to put a clause in the teacher contracts that said it condemned same-sex relationships, premarital sex, sperm donation, all these things where it's trying to interfere in people's private reproductive health choices that are really important for them to determine the paths of their own lives. So we're working with another group called California Latinas for Reproductive Justice, which is based in LA. And we're sponsoring that bill and working with Assembly Member Lorena Gonzalez Fletcher from San Diego to get that through the legislature. And then the other bill that we're working on is one that would create a pro-choice license plate in California. So you might have heard that a lot of other states have anti-choice license plates that fund bad programs, but very few have pro-choice license plates. And we felt like this was a really important time to do this, where we are in this mode of resistance to what the Trump administration is trying to do and what Congress is trying to do. So with the license plates, the money that is raised from them would go to a program that provides family planning services for low-income Californians. And it's what allows clinics like Planned Parenthood and other abortion providers to keep their doors open because they get reimbursed for those services that they provide. And right now, the federal government is paying for 90% of that tab. So if they succeed in defunding Planned Parenthood and other abortion providers, that program is in jeopardy. So the pro-choice license plate, which we're working with Senator Hannah Beth Jackson from Santa Barbara on, that is a way for us to both display our values every day and each play a part in pushing back against these threats against people like Planned Parenthood that are doing important work and providing essential health care, including abortion. And it's a really fun campaign. One of the things that we're doing is we're working with 3 women artists based in California to do designs for the license plate. And we're going to unveil those next month, and the public will have a chance to weigh in on what those will look like. And then we'll be working really hard to sell the minimum number of license plates that you have to sell in order to get them made in California. So, you know, I think especially right now, it's really exciting for us to have something positive and proactive that we can get behind, that is both making a difference for people here in California and sending a strong message to the federal government and the rest of the country about our California values and how we intend to keep standing up for reproductive freedom.
For sure. So kind of going back to what you were talking about earlier about women being unfairly condemned and judged for their private reproductive choices, Gorsuch was just confirmed to the Supreme Court. So is NARAL concerned about that? And how do we move forward with that being passed us now?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we're definitely concerned. We've been at the forefront of pushing back against him because he has a record of, frankly, a very cruel record on the court in terms of protecting corporations over, regular everyday people and putting their rights first. And he was very vague about Roe, and he never really answered questions about that, but there's a lot in his record to make us concerned.
Specifically the Hobby Lobby case, right?
Right. So he supported this idea that religious freedom entitles these corporations to not provide birth control for their employees based on their own beliefs that don't actually match up with the science, and involving them in these private reproductive health decisions again. And he also wrote a book that was about the Death with Dignity movement and the sanctity of life, as he would call it, that lines up very much with a lot of anti-abortion rhetoric. And of course, one of the things that was very alarming to us was that anti-choice groups were like dancing in the streets when he got nominated. Like they were really excited about it, which is a very bad sign.
Right.
So, and now he has a lifetime appointment to the court. Now, this doesn't change the balance of the court right now on the abortion rights issue. So, Roe isn't in threat right now, but there's a lot of damage obviously that he can do. So we'll certainly be gearing up, hoping that the Trump administration won't get another appointment on the Supreme Court, but really preparing for that fight, because that one is going to be especially key in terms of the balance of the court and could have implications for decades.
Mm-hmm. So kind of also about the Trump administration and their war with women. Do you think that the defeat of the Trump healthcare bill gives women any guarantee that their rights will be preserved under this administration? Do we keep fighting? Is this still something to be concerned about, et cetera?
Unfortunately, everything was not solved by that failure, though it was very satisfying, and I think a great sign of the impact we can have when we really mobilize around this and take advantage of the political landscape like that. But a lot of people in Congress are still very determined to go after Planned Parenthood's funding, to, again, chip away at the services that women have. I mean, we all saw that picture of all the men in the room talking about getting rid of maternity care, right? So we certainly can't rest easy on these issues. And there's a lot the Trump administration has been trying to do in terms of chipping away through executive orders or things they've done, like they had Congress voted to make it easier for individual states to stop giving Title X funding to abortion providers. So, we need to be, again, really vigilant on these issues, raising as much hell as we can when they do something like this, because we see that it does work and that we're able to split them. Thankfully, they don't have unity, and so we have a good opportunity there to really push back on what they're doing, and then at the state level, making sure that we close any possible loopholes that would impact people's coverage here. We're in a much better position in California. The right to abortion is in our Constitution in a stronger way than it is in the national Constitution. We have even tougher standards for covering contraceptives than the ACA did.
Mm-hmm.
So that's still in place. And there are new ways that we're opening up access. So for instance, last year we passed a bill that said that you can get up to 12 months of birth control in one pharmacy visit so that you don't have to go every single time. And that's the law now as of January. So we're still working, and that is having a ripple effect where in Nevada, where they just flipped their chamber to their legislature to pro-choice, which is one of the bright spots of the election, one of the few. Now they're working to pass those same laws there. So, looking at local areas where what we can do to protect women and their access to healthcare as much as possible, regardless of what the federal government does.
I remember lobbying for that piece of legislation in California.
Yeah.
So kind of going off of what you were saying about like all these different issues that activists should be concerned about, and that everyone is really concerned about on the pro-choice side right now, what are the most important issues that we can focus on, especially in California and especially in a state where we have a pro-choice legislature, and a largely pro-choice government? What issues should we be focusing on to further the impact of California, but also to help states that don't have that kind of pro-choice legislature?
Mm-hmm. So there's a lot to do here, and I think it's really important that our legislators still hear from us, even if they are pro-choice. I mean, especially the ones at the federal level, they're getting pressure from all sides. They need to know that this is a really important priority, that, they continue to fight for it no matter what happens, because they're also, getting overwhelmed with a lot of issues, and they need to know that this is one that we all care about, that we expect them to really take leadership on. And at the state level, with some of these bills that we're passing, there is opposition to the bills like we're doing, where the Catholic Conference is opposing our non-discrimination bill, the Chamber of Commerce is opposing our non-discrimination bill, so we really need people to hear from the other side of that. And also, there are opportunities where we're just trying to improve access, because having the legal protections is one thing, but then actually having the resources to get the services that you need is a whole other issue. And so, for instance, there's a bill in California right now that would require campuses that get state funding to provide medication abortion services. And so this is like a big innovative thing that they're doing. It's definitely controversial, but it means that, students and people around campuses might be able to get an abortion on campus instead of having to drive a couple hours and get the, transportation, get the money to get there. So there's a lot that we can do at that level as well. And then I think, paying attention to what's going on, what are the big fights, and how we're really coming together. And I think the Supreme Court was a great example of that, where we had a national coalition who we all have different priorities, but we recognized that this was a fight that we needed to have. And we really came together around that, whether it's people who work on issues around money in politics or issues around racial justice, economic justice, reproductive justice, that we were all coming together to use the power that we have as a collective to push on these issues.
Yeah, so that's really great in a lot of ways. So kind of going off of what you were saying, so what's the future of NARAL now? So we've already kind of talked about what's happening in the Trump administration and how we're moving forward from that, but how do we look forward to 2018 to 2020, and in general, the future of this organization, especially in California?
So we have been fighting on these issues since before the Roe v. Wade decision in 1973. We will always be fighting on these issues. And I think a really important thing to that informs our organizing as we look into the future is this idea that as people who support access to abortion, we are the majority in this country. And I'm sure most people watching this have heard the opposite most of their lives, right? That this is a very divisive issue. It's the most divisive issue there is. We need to tiptoe around it. We need to be careful and not talk about it. And we didn't feel like that was correct. And so we set out to prove that it wasn't correct. And we changed the way that we were asking the question. So we would ask people, give them a few choices to pick instead of just saying, are you pro-choice or not? But say, I think abortion is moral and should be legal and accessible. And that's where you get like that solid 50% we always hear about. But then we ask people, they could pick I don't think abortion is right for me or in my family, but I don't think other people should interfere. The government shouldn't interfere in that choice. And with that, you get another 20% of people. Now, those people might not go around calling themselves pro-choice, but that's what they are, right? They're like, hey, whatever you want to do, that should be your business and not the government's business. So that's really a solid 7 in 10 Americans that believe this. And we tested it in Kansas and Florida and all these different states. You know, it holds across the board. Forms a lot about how we move forward and how we strategize, is feeling that like we are the majority and we need to act like the majority when we are fighting on these really key issues. You know, and I alluded to this before, one of the things that we'll really be focusing on in the future is this idea of building power in the states. It's something that we've all seen conservatives do very, very effectively, and they control a lot of state legislatures right now. They have deep benches in some of these local offices, and so we're really looking at how we can engage more on those levels and build that kind of power like we did in Nevada, where we really invested early on and were able to flip that legislature, get the first Latina senator elected to the U.S. Senate, and now are actually moving pro-choice policy. So we'll be thinking a lot about where are the places we can have that kind of impact and mobilize people in that way. And here in California, we've even been doing that with doing local ordinances around things like anti-choice crisis pregnancy centers. And then, of course, as you say, with 2018 and 2020, we'll certainly be looking at the elections. And you know, one of the things that has been an important priority for us moving forward is the difference between allies and champions. You know, we have people in office who vote the right way, and that's important, but it's not enough for us to go all in on someone. You know, we want people who are out there talking about this issue, making it a priority, introducing legislation, bringing it up as part of their talking points, people who really embody what it means to be a champion for reproductive freedom. And so we'll certainly be identifying those people in competitive races and making sure that we get more of those kinds of leaders representing us in all levels of government.
For sure. So in talking about the future, there are going to be thousands of high school students listening to you. And what's the best way for high school students to get involved with NARAL? And what messages do you have for them? How should we help you?
Well, there are a lot of different ways you can get involved. And I would say, you know, whatever you choose to do on whatever issue, you know, just know that your voice is really important. And again, even with some of these people that we take for granted that they agree with us, they need to be hearing from us right now. And I think for me, one of the most inspiring things I've seen is just the different types of local resistance that are happening. You know, you're seeing in California, our state legislators, some of our mayors taking a really strong stance in terms of, you know, protecting undocumented immigrants or, you know, fighting for abortion rights, that we have these people that are standing up, and we need to keep doing that. And also that we're seeing the resistance is working, right? Like, you know, we thought Republicans certainly thought they were going to sweep in and have their way and Obamacare would be gone. And, you know, we've been really effective in pushing on that, and amazing things like the women's marches and the protests at the airport against the Muslim ban. Like, we're seeing how those things are having a ripple effect, and that we really need to keep doing that. So in terms of being involved with NARAL, you know, we have a lot of volunteer opportunities wherever you are in the state. We can find ways for you to get involved. You know, the most basic thing is going to our website, signing up for our email alerts, so you know when there are really important things happening on the state and national level. And can get involved there. But we also have, if you're in the Bay Area, we have a volunteer night in our office the first Tuesday of every month. So that's an opportunity to help us out, whether it's phone banking or stuffing envelopes or, you know, doing some kind of, you know, learning education session or discussion about the issues. Helping us out at different events that we do, like tabling at San Francisco Pride or something like that. Or the Democratic Convention will be there. I'm sure a lot of you will be at the convention in May in Sacramento. We will be there with our booth, so hopefully you can come say hi to us there. And also there's some really specific things in terms of the bills I talked about that we're doing here that people can help with. So one is our lobby day. You just mentioned lobbying for our bills. And, you know, we really want to make it big this year. We want people to see people in purple t-shirts like the ones you're wearing all around the Capitol and really show nice that that, again, we're visible, we're active on these issues. We really want them to be taking a stand for reproductive freedom. So that's April 26th in Sacramento, and there will be a link to sign up in the description on this video that you can check out. And it's really a way, most people, I've done a lot of lobbying in my career and gone out with a lot of people who are new to lobbying. A lot of you probably have done this before, but if you haven't, most people are always surprised at how empowering it is and feeling that they actually get to get in there and talk about what's important to them, that people listen to them. And it's really important from the perspective of showing how much people care about this. Because if you take the time to come and sit down and talk about these issues, it shows how important they are to you.
Mm-hmm.
So the deadline to sign up for that is on April 12th, and we'll do all the training that you need and all of that. And another thing that we're doing to support the non-discrimination legislation. So I mentioned that the Chamber of Commerce is opposing the bill, and we want to make sure that people understand that they don't speak for the entire business community in California. So what we're doing is we're training people to go out and talk to businesses in your neighborhood, small businesses, and ask them to sign up and say they support this bill. They recognize that their employees should have these protections, and it's none of their business what they do with their reproductive health choices. I just went around my neighborhood in Oakland on Friday. It was really fun. People were really supportive, and it's like a nice different way that you can get people involved. And again, I think people all over, including business owners, just want something to do right now, and this is a really concrete way they can help out. So there's also a link to sign up for that. Whether you come in person or do online training like this, we can show you how to do that and get more involved in that campaign. So those are just a couple of things, and we can always tailor volunteer opportunities. Like if you have a chapter that wants to do something together, we can come up with a special project for you to do or something like that. So definitely get in touch with me too if you have questions or want more ideas of how to get involved.
Yeah, so for those who are listening, I remember going to Lobby Day last year, and I was also at convention with you guys last year. And not only is it really fun to be with people who agree with you, but it's really empowering. You get to go and talk to state legislators or their staffers about this issue that really matters to you and is really important. And so it's really empowering, and I would definitely recommend it. And like Rebecca said, all the links are in the description. And so we'll definitely get some students to come and help you out there, because that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
So any last words for the high schoolers who are watching?
Well, again, just thank you all for all the work that you're doing. We really need people to be involved in this right now. Like, we can't do this by ourselves. So it's all about, the grassroots and the leadership and local communities and people like you who really are stepping up and helping us to make this happen. And, these are difficult times right now for all of us, I think, who really care about social justice and reproductive freedom. And, one of the most empowering things for me is just spending time with people, connecting with people who also care about these issues and are doing something about it. And that's one of the reasons why I would really encourage you to work with us, because I feel like it's just such an important time to have that community and really come together in person and get to know each other and, support each other as we do this work, and also see the impact that we can have when we work together. So thank you all for listening, and I hope I'll get to meet you and work with you soon.
For sure. Well, thank you all. If you have any questions, again, the links for the programs that Rebecca talked about are in the description. You can email her. Her email's in the description as well. And you can message me on Facebook or email me at rmiller@hsdems.org. So thank you so much for joining us, Rebecca.
Thanks, Rose.